These are the components used for this rig. You've got bait screws, you've got size 8 swivels, hooks, splicing needle, scissors, braid and mono. We're going to start by taking our hook and our swivel and placing our swivel over the eye. No rocket science there. But when we pull that into the eye, we're going to bend that swivel that way. Just the eye. So it sits like that. We're then going to take a piece of mono and we're going to form a mouth or a loop, just like that. We're going to take our hook and we're going to clamp that mouth. Because this is a grinner, we're going to clamp that mouth to the shank of the hook. We're going to come in behind the shank and through the mouth once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, and then we're just going to tidy that up, and then we're going to clamp that with our right and pull hard on the left hand tack. Move down to position, and then with my teeth I'm going to pull this tag here hard. We're going to snip that off there, so you're left with, snip that a bit tighter, you're left with that so far. If you can, cut diagonally so it'll pass through knots better. We're going to take a bait screw, a ringed bait screw, place that on there, like so, and then we're going to pass through the swivel and then through the eye of the hook, like so. We're going to pull down tight on that, forming a D. And then we're going to cut and dab with a lighter the mono to hold that D in place. We're now going to take some braid and we're going to thread that through the eye of the swivel. And we're going to form a loop. A bigger loop. So I'll get my fat hands through it. And we're just going to simply cross over once and pull that into position. And you're looking for that. We're going to snip an end off here, and we're going to leave maybe a couple of millimeters. So you don't need to go too tight to that knot. We're going to take some rig tubing, just a small piece, thread on with our splicing needle, take the long end of your newly formed rig, and that tungsten tubing, even with that tiny bit of weight, is going to help, because you're going to pull that over the knot. It's going to help to keep that rig in position. With this end, you're going to double up the strand, and halfway down you're going to tie a simple overhand knot. And then pull that into place. Again, snip off, doesn't need to be a massive amount, and you're left with this. Taking your tungsten tubing, cut off about 2.5 inches, and carefully thread this onto your splicing needle. On she goes, over the clasp, take your loop end, and then carefully ease that down into position. And then what you want to do is cover that knot. Now that knot now acts as a holding point to keep that tungsten in play. You would then place your pop-up on your bait screw, and your rig, if your pop-up weight is correct, it's this swivel here that will be used as the weight to counterbalance the pop-up that would be going onto your bait screw. Now, I'm a firm advocate that from a carp's perspective, it's not what they can see that bothers them, it's what they can't see. So I really like to break things up. So you've got braid, you've got a break up there, braid, potentially a twig there, and again braid there. That's attached obviously to your end line, however you're going to do that, whether you're using a leg clip or heli, whatever you're going to do. And then maybe just use a small sleeve there once that's up, once that's over and in place. This system allows this, if you can see that loop there, it allows a rocking motion in the water. So it's going to act very naturally. Yes, your pop-up is unnatural on the basis that it's not laying on the deck, but using this system, you'll find that if you was using a pop-up, you may be fishing a bait about here. With this system, you're baiting it there, which for me is kind of halfway between a pop-up presentation standard and a bottom bait presentation standard setup. So I'm quite happy with the depth of that. I'm also very happy with the agility. You've got a ring swivel giving you an axle point. You've got the swivel, this part of the swivel that's next to the eye of the hook, an axle point. You've then got the bottom part of the swivel, which is an axle point, and of course now you've just applied just a loop. You've then got an additional rocking point. So this is going to sit extremely naturally on the bottom of any lake bed. We were talking about silty bottoms. For me, this is the perfect setup for a silty bottom. I'm not a big fan of just using mono as a boom. I'm not a big fan of just using braid as a boom. I'm certainly not a fan personally of peelback or coated braid. So for me, this gives me all the flexibility I need, still gives me rigidity in the middle of the rig. So I know if I'm landing over a stone or a pebble or a bit of weed or a bit of debris, that my rig can still, at this end, adjust accordingly. If I was using just mono, then of course the whole rig would be out of play, depending on where you're casting it. So for me, it's all about the flexibility. The buoyancy of a pop-up will bring all of this tight and up into play. If you wanted to add a dropper, additional dropper, or you wanted to use a smaller bait, then maybe go from a smaller size swivel. But that one's for you guys to play around with. I've caught many a carp on this rig, and it really isn't just following the norm. It's a variation of. But for me, using tungsten tubing in the middle of the boom not only gives you the rigidity required to aid, but it also breaks up the visual side of things. So you've got, like as I stated earlier, a twig in the middle there, but it's the flexibility of that rig that makes that special.